open the meeting at 9 a.m. And we're going to have it in the cafeteria this Saturday. And then I'll go ahead and read through all the rules and those long rules and stuff that I got to read for the RSAs. And then from that point, I will go into reading in each individual warrant article, and then I will introduce its author. And so obviously that'd be your school board. So, and then I would introduce whoever you would want to have for a person to introduce the warrant article, what it meant, why did you do what you did. So, so the first warrant article then would be is the operating budget. So
does that get presented by us or the NBC?
the NBC typically does the budget. So that's Terry Roy is the NBC chair. But if you guys have somebody that would want to follow him,
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
okay, very good. Okay, the second one is looks like the collective bargaining agreement between the Deerfield School Board and the Para Educators Association. So who would like to speak on that?
I'll take them with you.
Okay. Okay, great. Yep, and that's if it's defeated. Okay. Okay, and then number 4 is the vote to raise an appropriate sum of $150,000 for the Special Education Trust Fund. So who would like to present that one?
Are they interested in doing probably 4 and 5?
I'd be happy to do 6 and 8.
Okay. I'm happy to do 4 and 5.
So
Or do you want to do?
If you're doing 1, I can do 4 and 5.
I'm sorry, and how do you spell your name?
Danielle, DANIE.
Thanks.
And then 6, I'll do that. That's common.
Okay, in your,
Actually,
Okay.
I mean, I could do 7 too if you want.
Up to you.
so you have number 6. Number 6 was the tuition.
This is sort of a side note to number 6, but, and we can talk about this later, but I will be putting forth a motion to amend number 6, sort of immediately off the top.
Oh, okay. I guess so. First.
So Kendra, would you take the lead then on that one to try to make sense?
Yeah, I'm happy to make the motion sort of off
So
the bat and then,
So what we'll do is I'll introduce the warrant article, and then I'll introduce you, Kendra, and then you can literally start by saying, I'm going to introduce a motion. So that way we're discussing we don't need to discuss and then bring back, oh, wait a minute, I'm changing all the words. So, and then if you can, we'll have somebody second it, and then we'll open it for discussion. And then following that, we'll vote with whoever's in the community, and shall it pass, then that amendment would be in play, and that's what we discussed from that point.
Okay, perfect.
Very good. And number 7 was to create the high school tuition expendable trust fund.
Okay, I'll do that one.
How do we spell it again?
ELLEN.
Sure. Okay. Number 8 is the
I can do
district.
that, but you might want to do it, Zach. Do you want to do it?
Whatever you guys would like, I'm more than happy to help.
Well, why don't you do it?
I'd be more than happy to.
Zach, okay. Zach's on number 8. Number 9 is the SB2 rescinding of SB. What's that?
Zach wants that one. I'm more than willing to discuss that as well.
Excellent.
However, I can be of assistance.
Look at you. Number 10. This one is shall the Deerfield School District vote to authorize indefinitely until rescinded the retention of year-end unassigned general
So
funds.
it's the upping on retainer.
So who would like to?
I can do that.
Kendra? Okay. Okay, so there's that. Okay, this is quick. Not that many articles. Questions on any of these that I can help you with?
Will you specify as you present them, or should we Some of these are able to be amended and some of them are not able to be amended, right? And so is that something that you want to address as you read each one? or
Yeah,
how do you-
yeah, so, yeah, exactly. So if it's written per an RSA, then we can't amend it. So that's basically the rule of thumb. So if it's an RSA prescribed one, then if it's a contract, things like that, you can't amend it.
I just mean, when we're there to the public, would that be worth?
Yeah, we would mention that.
For you to
Yeah,
say each
yeah.
time.
So it's
whether it's
like last week, we had zoning amendments that you can't amend, so we just introduced it for discussion.
And the SB2, you can't. Right.
Yes, correct. SB2, that one is again, when it has the RSA right in it, then that gives you the clue that it's written per RSA, you can't amend those. You can't amend anything to change the subject matter. So just as a rule of thumb, so when doing amendments to a warrant article, you can't change the subject matter, but you can change the other verbiage to it. So that's, if that's about.
Yes.
That's a question for you is, presumably you've lined up either, Dean or one of his associates.
Yes. Patty has.
Well.
I'm
Can't
not
take
sure
credit
who's
for that.
coming yet, but someone is.
We'll be representing. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then I don't think I have anything else on my list. Was there any other questions that you guys have that I can answer for you? Seeing none, all in favor? I'm out of here. Okay, great. So I will see you all. If we can have the school open at 7 a.m.
I've already spoken to,
Awesome. Malloy Sound will be here to do all the setting
Yep.
up. and that.
we've set up, he's going to pull in the back. We've,
All coordinated there.
Yep.
So awesome. And I think, other than that, no, I think we're good. And if you have anything in the meantime, don't hesitate to reach out. But I think we'll have a great Saturday morning. So.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
It starts at 9.
yeah,
So
Mel-
at what time do we need the clerk there by? I remember that was an issue last year.
Yeah, they should definitely be there by 8:50. Should be a good time.
Okay.
So just in case there's a car accident down the road, which happened
Which
last
happened
year.
last year, yeah.
Mhm.
You know, good to have a little extra time built in there, and then the clerk can get all the paperwork set up and
Right, okay.
all that stuff.
I will
So,
let her. I'll reach out to her
Should give us all just enough time to stop and get some coffee prior to.
before she has to
Before
leave.
she has to
Mhm,
leave.
very good.
But for you, I would say between 8:15 and 8:30. I don't know that.
That's fine. I don't mind being there, whatever. I just want to.
And we're in the cafeteria.
yes.
It's in the cafeteria.
It's in the cafeteria.
It's
Yep,
in the cafeteria.
that kind of.
Yeah.
Good.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Have a good day, everyone.
Okay, now we have fire suppression. We have a few guests here joining us for this. Thank you all for coming. We have Chief Fisher,
John.
Mr. Dubianski.
Whatever it is I do.
Yeah. And then a host of engineers behind us and people who worked on the fire panel project. So thank you so much for coming.
A big table.
So the board invited everyone to come to the same room because
John, is that a good
I don't know
A little-
quite
I'll make
as
it
much
a
about
kid's
this. I don't know quite as much about the situation, but I want to sort of get everyone in the same room so we can figure out how we can get the fire panels project closed down. So yeah. Does anyone want to
So,
take the lead?
yeah, I guess, why don't we just start off so we can make sure everybody's thinking the same way. So we have had two, I guess, phases to this project that we've done so far. So the first phase was the control panel, maybe 3 years ago. I guess at this point, our control panel failed. And we worked with our engineers, the fire protection company, and a fire protection engineering company to design a new panel, and we got that part done. And the second part of that project was then to go through and update, replace all the devices, new wiring, and bring the building up to current fire protection code. And there's a particular code that is referenced, what is it, FPMLA?
NFPA
The NFPA codes.
in the building codes.
It's in the building codes. So that work's been done. And that project is completed to the extent that we have installed what was on the prints and the plans that went to the state and to the fire department in Deerfield. There has been a request for a couple of additional devices or some additional work to be done and added. And so we need to wrap that project up, and try to figure out how to get this done so that we can finish the contracted part of the work and remove old wiring, which is all, I think, part of that same code as well, correct? The removal and the tear out of the stuff. So during the wrap up on the install for the new device part of the project, Steve and John, myself and Chris, there was a couple of items that we wanted to add, and then that kind of grew and grew and grew and started to really exceed what was originally drawn out in the original prints and plans. So, we collectively as a board need to figure out, A, what really needs to be done, so we can wrap up the project. And we want to get everybody on the same page so that we can close this out. To date, we have a system that was installed, meets all of the NFPA codes. And we just need to figure out what needs to be added, what's additional, where is it based in existing code, and how do we make sure that we have a completed system so that we can wrap this up. So maybe you gentlemen can kind of talk a little bit, we can reference this, and we can try to go from there.
Sure. So, yeah, I would say,
I think I gave a fair enough summary.
close. I want to say, yeah, back in 2020, the alarm system really started to hit end of life. The school had been experiencing some troubles and some issues with the existing alarm panel and somewhere in the system before that, but I want to say it was the summer of 2020. Myself, Assistant Chief Dubianski, I think Chris was brand new, and Tim sat down in the cafeteria and started to formalize what was somewhat of an initial design or draft idea what replacing the system might look like. And through that discussion, there was a handful of questions that were generated. I reached out to Fire Marshal's office for some input, had some of my own input, and responded back. And from there, that is the basis of my understanding of when the alarm system started to come to fruition of replacing it, right? Where we were going from there. This is the roadmap that we laid out. That was in 2020. There was some discussion, the alarm system kept going, right? It didn't reach end of life then. There was some follow-up emails with an engineering firm, design architect. I think that was in relation to the addition warrant article that was floated a couple years around that. Again, that same information was forwarded along to the whole existing team of parties of, from my standpoint, this is what I was looking for. This is what I was under the expectation the system would be. So yeah, as Zach mentioned, right, the system finally just died. Got to a point where we had to replace it. Started with phase one of replacing the alarm panel downstairs, which, because of how it just basically ended the issues it had, it was not making notification to the outside world. If there was a fire alarm, you'd pull one of the handles downstairs. It was by the cafeteria. Dispatching never knew about it. The alarm system on the second floor of this building either would or would not go off if it was activated. So it got to a point where it was done. I believe the first step at that point was a temporary panel.
Permanent.
Did we do the temporary, then the permanent, or the permanent right
No, we
away?
just did permanent right
Okay,
off the bat
so-
after our meeting.
There was a permanent panel that was put in. During that time, we had a fire watch in place because the sprinkler system was still working, but the fire alarm system itself was not. And then I want to say that following year, monies were available and the design of the new system started to take place. Was reviewed and sent back, and that's was my understanding was bid upon and put in. And after the installation period, there was some communication back and forth. We had some meetings here to review some things. And then on the walk around to, let's say, final acceptance test the system is when I had noticed that I guess my expectations of we were going to have detection in every classroom as we have now was not there. It was pretty evident if you walk around, the new detectors aren't there. Also with that, walking around, there were a few items that need to be addressed. There were some rooms that don't have notification in them, which need to have it. The gymnasium currently doesn't has the old detection, but my interpretation of code of NFPA 101, gymnasiums have to have detection. So I think there's some back and forth there that needs to get ironed out. The initial plans didn't show anything in the gymnasium. One of the meetings was looking at that, and we identified, I think there's 11 heat detectors there now.
Yeah, we knocked it down from the heat detectors to a reasonable amount of smoke detectors at that time.
For the gymnasium and the,
Yeah, and I don't know the exact
Stage
code
area.
section, but I'm almost 95% sure that smoke detectors are not required in gymnasium if it's fully sprinkled.
okay, I believe the detection is required.
Sprinkler accident detector though in NFPA 72. That's how you get around automatic detection of sprinkled building.
Would
And
currently have to disagree with you on that. And according to NFPA 101.
And so I think this is where some of this discussion is coming from, right? So we, if I may.
Please, yeah, please.
So, this project started off obviously with the alarm panel, that was all done and everybody's good there. When we worked with the engineering firm, well, the architect, the engineering firm, and then the contractor, there was 2 sets of prints that were produced and sent to the State Fire Marshal's office for review. I know one of those sets of prints, the State Fire Marshal's office had a couple of clarifying questions. I think there were some battery loading calculations, which might be a little foreign to me, but I know there were some questions there for that and a few other items. I believe that went back and forth, and then there was a final set of design. I would refer to them as design drawings in my end, but I don't know if you guys have a different term.
Yep.
A final set of design drawings that went back and forth. That I know went again to the State Fire Marshal's office as well as to Chief Fisher. I don't know who else would have seen him from the department. And so we have installed what we believe to be, and this is maybe questions for the engineers and the architects, but we have installed what we believe to be a fully code compliant system per the designs and the drawings that we provided both to the state and to the town. And so if there's maybe some discrepancy in translation of the code, maybe we need to just kind of root that out. And obviously if there's corrections that need to be made per codes, that seems to make sense. But we want to wrap up the project and we need to figure out, are we missing 3 detectors or something that are as a quick fix? Or are you asking us to rewire the building, or where we stand? Because the current solution we have is the old system is running in parallel to the new system.
The old detectors.
Sorry, the old detectors are running in parallel to the new system,
Yes.
which is in its entirety, and some stuff had to be unplugged or deactivated because of the old system and the way that it was running and whatnot. But we want to wrap this up. The contractors need to wrap up the project, obviously, with this as well. So I know we've been reaching out to try to get this meeting together, and finally we were able to get it together. But how do we wrap this up? How does everybody get on the same page so that we can put this to bed, right? And obviously what we're looking for is if there's code that's missing, that's really where we need to, if we have items that are missing per code, or that weren't done to the designs that were reviewed by everybody twice beforehand, that's one, I guess, concern that needs to be addressed. If there's some punch list items that are, a couple basic things that I would expect in any project of this size, but we need to get resolution, which is what we're trying to do, and that's why we want to bring everybody into the room so that we can try to find some level of resolution here. I am not an NFPA guy.
So I guess leaving one of the meetings that we had right before school was starting, my understanding was we were considering this phase 2 and phase 3 would be the gymnasium, what have you. So I guess is the intent to wrap up the whole project or the phase?
Well, I think what we need to figure out is, I know when we were talking about in the gym, right, we said, we had to figure this out and talk with the board, so obviously here we are. But, you know, are we looking for a couple of smoke detectors and if I've used the wrong term, please somebody correct me.
Yep.
Are we looking for a couple of smoke detectors to add into the gym and then everything else is good? Or are you saying the prints that were provided to you in the fire marshal's office aren't satisfactory or didn't meet code? Because there's two different things that we have to address, right? Like if, and I'm not, if we didn't get what was designed, then that would be a concern with a contractor, which I don't think is the case. And if what was designed doesn't meet code, then that would be a concern we would have with the architectural firm and or the engineer that designed it. Or are we trying to build something that is outside of code, and what are we trying to build that's outside of code, and how do we know that what we build or modify or change is going to satisfy whatever that standard is that we're trying to achieve? Am I making any sense?
I think I'm.
Okay, so are we looking for what needs to be done? I guess for the fire, because at the moment, unless you tell me otherwise, I have to assume that what was installed was what was on the prints, and what was on the prints is what was approved by the fire marshal's office. Am I correct in that?
I believe the only comments I remember coming back from the fire marshal's office were the review, non-approval or what have you, was just design calculations, which I believe through communication was something that would be after.
Yeah, usually the battery calculations are provided in the shop drawing process. And at that point, we had not, I don't think the timing, we had not received the shop drawings yet. That's standard boilerplate information for something that they would request. But that gap between bid versus us receiving a shop drawing was, I think, when they reviewed it, that was one of their line items.
And that was between the first and second set of drawings, I think is when they had asked for those calculations.
I believe so, yeah.
If I recall correctly. So
I think I only saw one set, because I had sent.
I saw two sets.
Okay.
So there was two sets. There was.
Because I had seen the set where I sent the fire marshal's office and they sent that looking for the calculations.
Right.
So I mean, if that was the first or the second, I
Right.
don't know.
So-
That was only one set.
So I guess, Matt, what I'm asking is did we get what was bid? And so that's, I guess, a question, or to the best of your knowledge, did we get what was bid, right? And then the second question is does what was engineered meet the NFPA standards that we have to apply to schools? And again, we contracted the people we contracted because they design systems for schools. They're familiar with it. They're fire protection engineers, clearly much smarter than I am. But we have to rely on them. And then are we trying to get, what are we adding if it's not in the code? Because if we have a non-code compliant system, then frankly, we probably have a conversation that doesn't involve you at this point, other than your role as a fire chief. It would involve the people behind me. If we have a code compliant system that was installed as per the prints, then we need to figure out why it isn't signed off on and why we can't wrap this project up.
So I guess I know there was some back and forth in regards to the gymnasium, but you know what I'm looking at, just particularly about the gymnasium of NFPA 101, Chapter 15, which talks to existing educational facilities. Auditoriums, cafeterias, and gymnasiums are protected by heat detection devices or other approved detection devices. So I'm looking at that heat detection or some sort of approved detection device is clearly listed for gymnasiums.
So a sprinkler is a detector.
Is there exception for being sprinklered?
Yes.
Should be right below it if there is.
So the only thing in 15 that speaks to sprinklers is that if there is a approved sprinkler system, it shall activate the fire alarm system.
But we're talking about doing the
Right.
gymnasium.
So-
as a separate
so
I
space.
guess,
So I guess
I don't want to,
No, okay, can I just take the lead?
You are welcome, because I was really not involved in
Okay.
most of this.
So-
Please go.
That was phase 3 or whatever we had talked about. So, I mean, is that, if we're talking about wrapping
think
up the
there's two
project,
parts
is
here,
that
right?
still being
there's the
discussed?
gymnasium and then I think there's the overall school. So I don't know which part we want to start.
So,
You
I
might
mean, is your concern strictly tied to the work that we discussed in the gymnasium and adding?
No.
Okay, so what are the rest of your concerns and where are they outside of code as we understand it?
So it could be, I don't know how the plans were generated. Right? I can assume, right, every year I get a map of the school, what room is what, where is this for, and that, right? There's on the second floor, when I went here, it was the computer lab that we played Oregon Trail in, right? That
Showing
room,
your
I
age,
believe,
Matt.
what's that?
You're showing your age.
That, I want to say that room's missing a notification device. I'd have to review all the rooms that are in the stairwells, right? I was even looking at the building permit, that those were storage rooms. They're being used as offices and stuff, and I don't know with calculations if you can actually hear the notification of the alarm system going off in the sanctuary stairwells, in those rooms, offices, whatever they're actually being used for. And that's part of my concern, is that the system can be designed today, or whenever it was a couple years ago, based upon whatever map layout that was given of, hey, this is what we're using now. I know the school's in a different layout, classrooms are different than when I went here. Sure, that's great. But, my point of view would be, how do we best protect the school, right? And everybody in the school. Am I looking, when I responded in 2020, asking for this, that, or my understanding of this, the question was asked. I can find it. The classrooms typically have 135, that'd be temperature, fixed temperature, rate-derived conventional heat detector installed in the center of the room. Will those still be required, or can they be omitted as the building is 100% sprinkler with full detection of hallways and corridors? So yes, per code, it's hallways and corridors. My response was yes, they will require to be maintain addressable detection in each room. And that's another key part to me, is addressable, right? So right now, if the fire alarm goes off, if the sprinkler system's activated, what notification am I gonna get?
Auto flow,
Where?
probably by floor. Yeah,
Okay.
first or second floor.
How big's the building, Chris?
Square feet? I
Yep.
do not know.
I'm guessing it's a lot, right? When we came here in the middle of the night for a fire alarm activation, it happened to be one of the old sensors, the roof was leaking. It happened to say second floor. 2 o'clock in the morning, whenever it was John and I. Could easily have been me, myself, and I. So in this community, right, I know the more information we have up front coming to something, the better it is for us. So if it's addressable in the classroom, I know where I'm going, not just floor, not just if it is a corridor. If the sprinkler system is all I'm gonna know is water flow, where do I go? Now that's after hours, that's, people not in the building, but even when I came to school here, my 5th and 6th grade, I went on field trips for 3 or 4 days because of the teacher I had. If no one's in that classroom, how big's the fire gonna get if there is one before anybody knows about it? Right? When we were here for that same issue, we found one of the classrooms that had Christmas lights plugged into the ceiling, hanging from the ceiling. Those aren't listed or approved for any of that application to be on over Christmas break, weeks on end. So what I'm looking at is what's the best for, in my mind, the longevity of the school. If, God forbid, there was ever an issue, finding it, getting there, and being able to take care of it. So yes, if per code are heat detectors, smoke detectors, I would prefer smokes in the classrooms. Required by code? No, they're not. Am I asking for something above and beyond? Yes. I'm a master electrician. I know the code is a minimum. Does Deerfield have an ordinance that says X, Y, Z? No, we do not. But these are things that I feel were laid out. Well, that was August 16th of 2020 of our expectations moving forward. John and I have worked, I think, really well with the school, giving time for things to happen and allowing things to move on in phases in progression as can be. Right? My understanding is the plans, I reviewed them today, don't even show the modulars. Now, I know they were added, work was done. I have not seen a plan including the modulars. One of the things I'm asking for Now, there's CO monitors in there now. I would like CO detectors in there that are hooked up to the alarm system. So that way, hey, if a teacher shows up at 7 o'clock in the morning and there's an active CO leak, 2 days in a row, somewhere else in town, we had CO calls with one of them had over 100 parts per million in it. So it can happen. So before a teacher shows up, the alarm's going off, I know about it 6 o'clock in the morning or wherever, we're able to get here and help and mitigate the situation before a teacher walks into this modular classroom all by themselves.
So I think my bigger question becomes is, this is the stuff that should have been discovered during the design phase when you had the prints for review. Or discussed when you had the prints for review, right? Because when they were sprawled out on the bench, that would have been the time to kind of say, hey, how about this or this or this or this? Because right now, it's another redesign of the system, right? If we add another 50 devices or 100 devices, we have a panel that can support it, but I don't know that the wiring that was installed to support all the additional devices. I don't know how that part of the system works, but when those plans were on the table twice, wasn't that the time for all that stuff to be reviewed?
I don't know about twice because I believe I only got them once. So if there were twice, I don't believe so. And in my mind, I'm not a fire protection engineer. I'm not a fire alarm installer, right? By trade, I'm a traffic signal installer. And I know if the code is, right, every existing device has to be removed and all the wiring has to be removed.
Correct, which we can't do yet.
Well, at the same time you're removing those devices, you can install new ones and pull the wire in.
That sounds like a significant amount of work.
To maintain the Class A circuit integrity, I mean, it's in and out. It's through all the ceilings again. I mean, it's just as much effort as
The first
phase
time.
2. Yeah, and especially when you're doing it after the fact, you didn't really incorporate that thought in the original wire pulling, so you kind of have to backtrack on what's been completed. I mean, nothing's impossible. Don't get me wrong, but it is a substantial undertaking.
I guess, another point is this building's changed. When it was first built, there was no sprinkler system, from my understanding, correct?
That's correct.
Right. So if a building is unsprinkled, there is requirements for smoke detection, heat detection, detection coverage in every room within a building that is non-sprinklered. Once the building got sprinklered, I don't know when that occurred, what the timeline.
99, 2000.
Okay, so around 2000. So 23 years ago, the building got sprinklered, the system's still in place. We get approached, we come along, we do our design, the building, as we walk around and note it, is sprinklered. So then that changes, what we do for design. And we're not at minimum code. We're sort of in between. We've got extra detector coverage in the corridors, which isn't really required except for fire doors. So we're kind of in this middle phase with but that's sort of the history of the building, because that certainly kind of tells the story as well. So
I think my concern though is that it was made very clear from the get-go, and I think I only missed one meeting when I had COVID. Is that even from that very first meeting where we sat down in the gym with Chris and Tim, and that the chief wanted no loss of detection coverage in those classrooms. He wanted devices in those classrooms. It is absolutely an AHJ issue, right? So it's over and above the existing code, but the code very clearly states that everything defaults back to the authority having jurisdiction, which is the fire chief. It's in his email. It's in the minutes of that meeting. I believe it's in the minutes of the meeting that we had where everybody was here, that the chief wanted devices in all the classrooms. So
and that's sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So it didn't make it on the plans.
Yeah,
Clearly.
so just so you know, as designers, there's, personal stuff that towns want, fire chiefs want. There's things that are specific to towns. This is why we have a fire department review set of plans that we sent out. We have the final stamped set of plans that were sent out. And then we requested that the shop drawings, which incorporate floor plans as well,
Floor plans, device
get reviewed
locations.
by the fire chief. So those specific things that a town fire chief, fire department may have that are above and beyond get addressed, because we certainly, don't know everything. So I guess it was, I'm assuming everything got there, but, basically 3 looks at this. To
Yeah, I don't know.
pick up those
One set of plans.
areas.
So I guess we need to try to find a path forward. Is the path forward the stuff in the gym? Is the path forward, we need to put another bid out for another 100, I don't know what it will cost, 100, 150, 50, 25, I don't know what the dollar amount is. And then what standard are we going to apply, and how do we know that, how do we solve this issue? Because right now, there's a little bit of an impasse, is that what standard is this system being held to? If it meets code and it's approved by the state and everybody had a chance to review it, and it was installed as the prints indicate, and it's a system that, from my understanding, is similar to what is being operated in a number of schools in the state of New Hampshire, as well as some brand new buildings, because typically similar designs, similar systems, and so that the system is basically the same architecture for the system as in, I think you said it was the river.
Pinkerton, Winnisquam, Allentown.
Bedford schools.
We just finished Oyster River. Oyster River was almost $60 million.
Sure, and let's say, Allentown, Oyster River, those are brand new schools.
Oyster River was brand new.
Yep. And
Some of
Allentown's
them
brand
are
new.
some of them are renos.
Bedford's was right now,
I think Jay could probably speak to
How old is the
over there.
electrical in this building?
same age as the building.
Okay.
But, how do we, and maybe Jay can weigh in. I don't know how these projects normally go, but I just seem.
Can I make a suggestion of maybe like a halfway point for everybody? Can we take a smoke detector that's outside of 2 classrooms? You can add 90 characters to the nomenclature of the address and address that smoke detector to be corridor 201 outside of classroom 202, 201.
So I guess my thought
So
would
that
be,
gets you in the direction, the floor.
In the neighborhood.
only if the teachers are propping their doors open, which they're doing, which they're not supposed to do. If the doors are closed, that doesn't really, smoke's not
So
getting
what's
out
the
of
standard
classrooms.
for doors? Are they supposed to be open or closed?
Closed. They're not supposed to be propped open. And that's a consistent problem in the building where, to the point where John's gone around and picked up wedges that are keeping the doors open. So these are things that, we've addressed, we've brought up in, it's why I'm asking for this. And I think, maybe my explanation tonight hasn't been clear enough, but that's really what I'm looking for, is detection in all classrooms. That's what I've said in my emails going back to 2020, and that's what I'm saying now. That's what I'm looking for. There's been comments at almost every NBC meeting or deliberative session that I've been at since fire chief, of a member of the school board trying to put $1 in the full-time line for the fire department in case we ever needed to go with full-time people. And I think that's great. Talking about safety of this school, well, this is my push for safety of the school, is detection in the classrooms.
And we talk about the system being compliant to the fire code. The chief already kind of started to touch on it. Is you got to understand there's a lot of parts of this building that do not meet current fire code. So you have a building that, like these. We actually did find an application for the building permit apparently, but none of those stairwell enclosures meet fire code. They shouldn't be there, right? The offices, the storage rooms. There's just we can spend a lot of time talking about it, but there's a lot of aspects of this building that met code in 1990 when the building was built, but don't meet the current fire code. And so it to me makes sense that we might have to go over and above the current NFPA for detection when we're trying to protect a building that doesn't meet the current NFPA for construction. And it's not anybody's fault, right? The building is just old. You guys are out of space. But there's a lot of stuff that when I do my walkthroughs that I kind of have to, like, Chris's office, right? There's a fuel burning water heater in there. there should be absolutely no storage of anything in that room. But where else are you guys gonna put it? Right? All the stuff in the, children having their clothing in the hallways in the winter, none of that should be there. But where else are you guys gonna put it? So those are the things that we kind of, even spaces like this, right? When you have a whole bunch of kids, I did one of my walkthroughs and there was probably 50 kids over in this corner. I don't know if that's a normal thing or not, but with only currently one way out, it barely fits. And again, you guys are using space like you have to, and we understand that. But at the end of the day, the whatever edition of NFPA 72 and 101 and 1 and 1972 and all of the codes that one has to dig into to design and install a fire alarm system are all based on current fire code sitting in a building that doesn't meet current fire code. And so we hopefully can address that when you guys get a chance to put it, through a bond for renovation and reconstruction. We can address all those issues, but as it stands right now, there's a whole bunch of stuff in this building that just doesn't meet modern fire code. It did 40 years ago or 30 years ago when I was 10 and wandering these halls myself, but not now.
So in regards to wrapping up the project, for the phase, I mean, if that's our plan moving forward, is what I remember being the phase was the new system that was installed. I would think the phase is complete, yes.
The problem we have is we can't remove the old system because we are still running those detectors.
Okay.
Which means we can't finish that project, which means we can't even technically onboard that system fully. We have, and maybe Jay, you can chime in. I mean, what typically happens is in these circumstances, am I missing something here or?
No, you have it right. So typically we'll do the design to make the drawings for approval. State fire marshal and the local. So and then you get signed up at the end. Which is forward. So I think you can all the parts.
Yeah. So I guess I don't know what the solution is, but I feel like at some point we need to, we've put in a system that is state of the art by every standard that is measurable. We have $300,000 into upgrading, right? About that, Betty? Between the first phase and the second, probably close to $300,000 worth of upgrades that we've made to that system from a 25, 30-year-old system to today. I think at one point where there was questions in the gymnasium, it seemed like a relatively simple thing. There was couple of devices that seemed reasonable. But to say after we've already gone through the review, the design, the engineering, and frankly, everybody had an opportunity to weigh in during that process, right? When it's all done, to try to add a bunch of stuff that wasn't planned for, it's a difficult thing for me to really want to get behind, because if I needed to pull if extra wire needed to be pulled, we would have pulled it in the beginning. It would have had a minimal impact on cost in the design phase, a huge impact on cost down the road. And I am all for making this building better. And we can walk around this building and see what's been done in the last 5 years and know that we have made improvements everywhere we can. And we have worked with every dollar the taxpayers have given us to address these things. But we also, we have to keep in mind that the taxpayers, I think, would have expected this and wanted this dealt with in the design phase and not afterwards. So that's my hang up, right? If a solution could be, and I don't know exactly what is entailed, but is it to make the smoke detectors in the hallway?
Yep.
The smoke detectors in the hallway addressable to help your department locate a concern. It's already 1,000% improvement above what you had before. Is
But
that-
actually, I do have questions in regard to this phase, the incomplete items. This first off, do we have a plan for getting the indicator horn and strobe on the front of the building? Because there currently is not one.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
up
they're
here.
not.
They're way up here in the corner. There's a red and a green beacon, both mapped correctly. Red beacon is mapped
There
to
was no
general fire
notification when
alarm.
we came in the other night, was
I don't remember when that night when we were
there?
here in the
Yeah,
rain.
they may not be functioning. And then I had sent an email several months ago about getting the system turned up.
Yeah,
Was
well,
there-
that again is a massive undertaking. We have to go to every single horn strobe that's installed and change the setting, which then change the voltage draw, which then changes the power supply.
We did our walkthrough, made it seem like it was part of what we were doing, and that it was just a matter of some
I mean,
programming.
is it a handful of devices?
No, yeah, I mean, where? And
So just so
every-
everyone
It was,
knows, I mean,
so the first couple of fire drills, general feedback from staff and students, and coming from students even, like even first graders, is that they weren't able to hear devices over the din of classroom noise. And that was said multiple times by multiple staff and multiple students.
so there's two things. Your original system, just so everyone knows, the original system was a horn strobe.
Mhm.
So it's in general, it's what,
Yep, and this is a voice. This is a voiceover.
4-6 times as
Yep.
loud as a voice. So what we typically see in a fire alarm final sort of walkthrough with towns and cities and departments is we'll walk through certain areas. Yes, some areas, for instance, in here, we have carpet, we have bookcases may require, some adjustment because I think they have dip switches on them, right?
Yeah, they have jumpers up top.
Right, so you can change the wattage, the output wattage. Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
talking out of
Yeah, quarter watt, half watt, eighth watt.
So we see that those changes and adjustments need to be made per the fire department. Typically, they're made a couple rooms here and there, whatever it is. Generally, the hallways are pretty, audible because of the BCT, the tiling and stuff like that. So it's not out of the realm. We don't see stuff getting requested to be changed and adjusted to tighten the system up to be.
So we did our walkthrough. It was the three of us and Chris in an empty building. You add 500 kids being kids, kind of changes the dynamic a little bit.
But that sounds like a reasonable thing to remedy, right? To an extent.
My understanding, has it happened yet? That was a couple months ago.
No, it hasn't.
But that sounds like a reasonable thing to remedy. That's adjusting existing devices that were already installed, and so that, fine, like that's easy enough to do. But rewiring the building again seems like an almost unreasonable request, given the point that we're at in the project. So trying to find a reasonable solution is what we need to do. We want to turn up the volume on the strobes, great, or the horns, whatever it is, sure, and we can ask the contractor to do that. If readdressing devices, because the system supports that, that seems like a reasonable request that will have a cost, but not a excessive cost. But to rewire a portion of the building or the whole building or add additional wiring into the building starts to seem like a reasonable request. And we have to come up with a solution that is reasonable and fair, given the design having been done, the system having been installed, and the project being at or near completion.
So let's hypothetically, right? If Tim, you walk me through something, right?
The technical end, you gotta go to that.
No. So we'll pick the classroom right to our right?
Okay.
Not the library, but the
Okay,
classroom.
all right.
So if we were to put a detector in there,
Yep.
where does that wire have to go?
It has to come in from the hallway.
Yep.
Loop to the detector location, and then go out back into the hallway to the next detector. So we
Okay.
have to continue the Class A loop with 18 inches of separation.
So we have to go from the classroom, basically run two wires or a single, but two pair wire.
2 in, 2 out. There's going to be 4 wires apiece in each MC.
So like 4 single wires or like a multi-conductor wire.
A single piece of MC with 4 conductors inside. 2 in, then 2 out, so 8 copper conductors overall.
And the feed and return have to have separation.
Correct.
Okay.
Class A, yeah.
How would you assume the existing wiring is set up? Because every room already right now has a detector in it that has to be removed and the wiring has to be removed.
I would.
Yeah, I'm just assumption.
You're asking on the existing wiring?
Yep.
I would think they probably punched into the classroom laterally and ran them right down the middle. That's a total guess.
Okay.
Down the hallway, then down the classrooms, because they're all zoned that way, like second floor, east, or whatever they call the zones.
So you have
just
to
try
take, you
group
have to
those
open up a
together.
ceiling tile, get the detector, and then take down all the wiring that goes each wing of the building.
In the demo phase, is that what the
Yes.
question is? Yeah, we have a number in to remove all the accessible wiring, boxes, and unused devices, yes.
But you're thinking,
And keep in mind, the existing devices that weren't addressable, just so everyone knows, an addressable device, it can tell you that, that's an old smoke detector, but it will tell you that it's smoke detector, second floor, east wing, outside classroom 201, like you physically give it a name and an address. The system before didn't have that. System before wasn't a speaker system. That's required now by code as well.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
Politely
asks you to leave.
The zone was second floor, that's what we started looking. John went that way, I went that way. I found water on the floor that way.
Before, because there's a new rule.
No, this was your new roof.
This
It
was
happened
like a
few
month
weeks
ago.
It's all been taken care of.
It was
That was
awesome.
that 2:00 in the morning when it's just John and I showing up to it.
I didn't know about that one.
So you're thinking that the zone and loop system, they literally just took the shortest path between 2 points?
Yeah, because if you look at the detection location of the classroom, they're pretty much in a straight line. So it looks to me, I don't know that for a fact.
So probably runs in the direction of the beams, the concrete beams.
That's what my assumption is.
I can't remember which way they go.
But we're not
This
using
way,
it.
this way.
Right.
We're not really utilizing the OI. It'll still be all new,
And it has to be new wiring. You can't.
Yeah.
Right.
There would be no value in connecting to the old wiring going this far with the new system.
Yeah, the new detectors are basically little computers.
Yeah. So, I mean, is it reasonable to say readdress a number of devices so that every smoke detector, smoke detector that's in the hallways, part of the codes, are addressed to the rooms that they are nearest to? Is that a reasonable solution? Turning up the volume seems like a reasonable solution.
And at my next fire drill, I can spend some more time walking around if the kids are willing to spend more time standing outside, which I'm sure they are.
Well, I mean, if
Trying to figure out where the,
Trish loves fire.
Depends on how cold it
Do
is.
you want the whole system?
well, if it is, so I can dig into it a little deeper.
Yeah, that's
The first fire drill that I did in September, per code, there was quite a few folks that came up because the previous fire alarm used to scare the crap out of them. Because it was
has
loud.
gone away.
Yep.
We're not trying to.
And I'm taking into account the fact that we're going from a system that screams at you
Yeah,
to a
correct.
system that very politely asks you to leave.
Yeah.
But there were quite a few folks that said that if it weren't for the strobe, which of course is the benefit of having a device in every room, they wouldn't have known the fire alarm was going off. Which again is the point of having the visual in every room.
So I guess I'm asking you, Chief, are those reasonable steps to resolve this? Are those reasonable remedies to your requests?
Well, let's draft a punch list, right? Because it's been a while since we walked around, came up with a punch list. Those 2 items are certainly going to be on it. Let's review the rest of the system.
Okay. That's a reasonable request on your behalf. So, I mean, certainly if we can do that, I think the board is interested in trying to wrap this up before my retirement because I probably know more about it than anybody sitting at this round table.
It's also like, would it be helpful if, when you have a fire drill, if you do a survey and ask all the teachers in every room, did they hear it? Did they have problems with it?
Presumably, there's
It's
a
very
standard.
subjective. There's a like,
It's too subjective.
yeah, one person may have harder hearing than the other. So, on the prints, once again, the speakers were shown at their tap wattage. So it's all part of the design because these rooms have a calculation for the output of the speaker. So I can certainly change those, but I match the ceiling height versus the room usage.
And I think part of it you addressed is that we were used to in a school having a screaming loud.
Mhm.
So when you're just hearing a voice telling you, fire, it's
Well, there is an accompanying horn as well, or
So-
beep noise.
I could see them saying, wow, that was
That
hard
was
to
a
hear, but
professional
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it
But was
wasn't,
it-
there's an adjustment.
Right,
period.
and I guess the question is it, and I wasn't here.
Tritone 3, I believe,
Was
is
the
the correct
system
term for it.
Temporal.
Temporal 3, yes.
Was the system hard to hear? Or was the system different, which creates the impression that the system's hard to
So
hear?
the visual devices are an improvement, right? Because then we had a fire drill prior to the new system where when my firefighter was doing the walkthrough, they came around the corner and the library was still hopping with kids because they didn't even know the fire alarm was going off. That was under the old system. Because with both doors closed, you literally couldn't hear the fire alarm in here. So adding the visual is an improvement. However, based on the room use, as Tim led into, the code calls for there being that you have both and visual and audio, so that normal hearing people can hear the audible alarms. We have to make sure that it's like the cafeteria is one of the places where I was told that the kids had to kind of like get the attention of people on lunch duty, and they're like, hey, the strobes are going off. We need to. And I don't know if they're in there. I mean, we don't do during the lunch, but they were in the cafeteria for some reason. So there may just be spots where the calculations alone, you really can't apply math to 100 kids, right?
No, it's different.
so there might be some places where we have to go a couple of clicks
And
above what the math says.
Like you
That's a
guys have
lot
a-
different than the whole building,
Yeah,
so-
well, which I think, yeah. I mean, I think it's.
You guys do the basketball tournament, which I've attended. If that's full and people are cheering, that's part of that temporal tone is to sort of get your attention, settle
Well, as
in.
long as they're plugged into the right outlet, the sound system will shunt off. That's new too.
Right.
But
And then you'll hear, the intent is not to keep going on, and it's hard with kids to keep screaming. If
Yeah.
you start hearing the temporal tone is to settle down and listen to what's going on. Same thing, if you guys came and were already here and needed to make an announcement over the
Yeah.
microphone.
Yeah, we have the
throughout
override.
Entire school, right.
Yeah.
You
No, I mean,
it's
obviously
same.
the function of the commerce system is to allow staff to give kids directions during
Yeah.
an emergency.
Right.
But they need to know there's an emergency first.
And so, to me, those are commissioning things, when we finalize the commissioning of the system. Those are those little adjustments you make when you commission a system. And I'm sure in your world, it's the same thing. There's timing things you have to tweak, and little changes you have to tweak when you install the, South Willow Street's new traffic lights. They're not timed right if you did anything, right? So, but that's the commissioning stuff that you work out, you put it on, you sort out. So that to me is not, that's not really what, we'll correct it, it needs to be right. It's the plus stuff that is my biggest concern. So, I mean, if there's a punch list that you want to work out with these guys, then we can come to a reasonable kind of solution without rewiring in a whole bunch of stuff. And, ideas about addressing the devices that are already in place, that seems reasonable. You want more volume? Reasonable. A device or two in the gymnasium, depending upon, what you guys, the codes are and all that stuff about everything, that seems reasonable. But we still have to recognize that the time that we should have made drastic changes outside of the code was during the planning phase when everybody had the opportunity to review. So I mean, if that's the approach you want to take, that's great, but can we try to put a timeline on it as well so that we can put a finite end to this project?
I want to say the plan for decommissioning the old system was this summer.
It's actually should have already been out by now because it was really supposed to be over the vacation weeks.
Yeah.
The original plan,
Well,
obviously,
Given the unknown of this situation, we're not gonna
Well,
get.
even the gymnasium was this summer because of the floor. Was my recollection from we met in August. You were
Yeah.
gonna get a lift here and this and that, and vacation to redo the gymnasium, yada, yada, yada.
but yeah, there was certainly that potential. So, but to at least finalize the plan, I think we need to try to resolve that sooner than later, because this has been, obviously, you're a busy guy and travel a lot, and getting all these guys here is difficult, and I turned to a pumpkin in 3 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever it is. But we really need to try to just wrap it up so there's a finalized plan that you're comfortable with, that the board, whoever is sitting here can be comfortable with, that these guys are comfortable with, but also as importantly is that is reasonable so that we're not asking the taxpayers to do it twice. If that makes sense.
Yeah, we can, yeah.
You mentioned just in terms of the taxpayers, yes, keeping the kids safe is obviously our primary goal here, but we need to think about the taxpayers as well. So I feel like I'm not hearing from you clearly that I think on this side, we're saying that there were 3 opportunities to look at the plan. You're saying that you saw the plans once, as you remember, you're not sure about a second time.
Correct. I'm not sure about the 3. I would not commit to 3.
Would your initials be on the second copy if that happened? Is there a way to go back and just figure out whether you have the chance to see the second? Like, the opportunity was there. It sounds like either you did or you didn't, but you're running the assumption that you did.
It'd all be by email.
Okay.
So we see it a couple different ways. We'll see a written, here's my comments.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll request a meeting. We'll sit down, we'll be made available to go over those certain items. Sometimes it's better to meet on site just to go over, I think there's a comment about a flammable cabinet or something like that, that we would pick up and address. And then, it could be even an email, I guess, these 6 items that, I'm curious about.
Right.
And
I feel
then
like
once,
I would like to know whether you saw it a second time or not. I feel like there's a little bit of uncertainty here. You saw it once, but then we're running on 2 different assumptions. We didn't look at it a second time, but if we did, I don't know, that would be helpful to clear up.
and then those shop drawings, it's kind of like, that's like the last line of defense. Like, he's got his manufacturer's cut sheets, the drawings are all point to point, all the addressing is on there. Yeah, the
So
battery
I guess if I will, right, my world of shop drawings is here, this is what we're using. No, and this is my, I'm not the fire protection engineer.
Yeah.
I'll submit things of here, this is what I'm using. And the end user or the engineer will approve, yes, hey, I'm using a smoke detector. I'm not gonna know, from my mind, I would not expect shop drawings to show me where every single device is gonna go and say, hey, this is the brand, traffic signal controller, signal head, all that stuff. That's my understanding of shop drawings, and that's what I looked at.
Unfortunately, in the fire alarm world,
It's-
we request that.
Every wire is shown, they're all color coded, every cabinet location was shown with identifiers. And then we do a riser diagram by floor, starting with the fire alarm panel, and we showed every cable going everywhere. And on that drawing, notification was red, and a horn strobe was left in the classroom with no other, all the initiation was in blue and green.
And that's his drawing basically stems
Yeah, that's
from
how
my
the
drawing.
And that's how the computer calcs it. When we drag and drop it, the computer calcs the voltage drops and all the other stuff for us.
So it's more or less an as-built, is that the?
It was his drawing that I just dumped into my CAD program to design, right? It creates your addresses, it tells you how many you can put on a loop before you overpower it. So it's the exact same thing he provided me. I just overlaid my equipment.
And so it's really taking the design and getting into the specifics even one step further, because it's gonna be whatever manufacturers spec and all that stuff. And
Right, which backs into the battery calculations, which
Yeah.
is one of the comments from the state. just
Correct.
The amount of devices and.
Voltage calculations are the important part there. Make sure you're not overwhelming any circuit.
And the batteries can support shared power.
But going forward, I guess, again, thinking about if we're gonna be in this town working on a police station, working on all the other things that we need to work on, if you are gonna be asking for standards that are beyond what the code is, that the state accepted code is, if you're going beyond that, it sounds like there's some miscommunication here. And hopefully we can address it. But going forward, I would hate this to.
No,
become a
because
thing
of
where-
all this, I've reached out to a third party inspection firm to help me with this type of situation.
yeah, I mean, my understanding and the research I've done is that additional codes are typically part of the town ordinances and are tracked, and I think recorded for some stuff through the state as well. And so, if presumably the city of Manchester, right, if we just pick on the biggest dog in our neighborhood, they have a bunch of staff that is gonna probably have a bunch of different things that apply to every city. 20-story buildings, this, that, and everything else. But those codes are all recorded, additional codes are recorded and recallable by anybody that is in an industry that knows how to.
Codes and specifications, yes,
Yeah,
very
so,
similar.
so
to
they
that.
know how to go find it, right? And eons ago, when I designed mechanical systems in Manchester, it was very easy to go through and say, hey, Manchester requires this, this, and this as well as. But it's been 20 years since I've been in that world.
Sure, and I would say.
Nothing is easy in Manchester.
Right.
Since 2020, I've been at, I think it was item 2 on the list of my response of what I was looking for. So I would say the communication's been there of, this is what the fire chief's looking for since 2020. It was forwarded in emails a few times. So in my idea, this request is not new and should not be a surprise.
Other than it wasn't caught on the prints.
Sure.
When you
It
have.
wasn't caught on the prints, yes.
When you have.
I don't know how many times, but yeah.
So what's our, just to make sure we're all on the same page, our plan to move forward is,
We're going to review our punch list.
okay,
With the folks that
And
went.
what do you
that was August or
right,
whatever,
and so
September.
the requirements for, where do you stand on your requirements for all the additional devices in the classroom?
Let's review the punch list.
Okay? When can you be available? Is that something you can do in the next week or 2 weeks? Or what's your proposed timetable to be able to have those discussions? And Kendra, my thoughts are that we should try to wrap this up over the next meeting
I'd love to.
or 2. So I mean, we have
What is your meeting
we have a
schedule?
meeting in 2 weeks from tonight. Is the, let's see, I leave on the 14th, 21st, and then we would have a meeting the first Tuesday of March is the 6th. And I turn into a pumpkin shortly thereafter. That we never have to do it.
I'm leaving for Florida on the 7th, so the 6th isn't going to work for me.
Must be nice.
Oh, hey, by the way, I'm leaving.
So is that something you can work and do your, I know you have a business to run as well, but is that something you can work into the next couple of weeks?
I think so.
Okay. So if you can possibly lay some times out with Chris, and Chris can bring the rest of the team together. And we
Well,
can,
yeah, I think we all have to be in the same room at the same time, or the same walkthrough at the
Just
same
tell us,
time.
I mean, just tell me when. Obviously, this is gonna get wrapped up, so I can be available.
okay.
Somebody had a running punch list when we did the walkthrough. I may have a copy.
Yeah,
of
I
it.
remember seeing one, and also I guess,
I
so
saw
obviously,
It might be on my desk at the station.
yeah, so I'm just thinking timing, obviously, because there's gonna be a punch list to walk through. There's gonna be stuff that needs to be addressed, so I guess I would defer to you as, reprogramming, maybe adding nomenclature to specific devices in the hallway. Like,
Am I doing that to be proactive? Am I waiting for that as a punch list?
I would,
I would punch list.
we're gonna punch list
Okay.
it and get the requests out, of what needs to be done,
Okay.
and maybe I don't need to sit in for this, maybe long.
Because I think for the punch list, I think we should have another, those are the surprise fire drills, but have one and see what the response is before we even go down to what's going to be listed on that punch list of what needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I know each town's different, but honestly, that's what usually a walkthrough with the fire department. They ring the system, it's not loud enough here, he has a guy at the panel, they make adjustments.
Well,
on the fly.
we did that when it was just the 4 of us in the
Yeah, yeah.
building.
In an empty building.
Different when school's actually in session.
Yeah, all the classroom furniture was in the hallways because they were cleaning. I mean, it was a whole different.
So I'm just thinking, if it's a week or two before we
Dynamic.
get out here to meet, he's obviously gonna have time, because the programming and readdressing is done in the office.
No, we'll do it here.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do it right here off the laptop.
So there's obviously, if each device is gonna get a different address as a compromise, there's some time with that. So I'm just thinking, he's got, I'm just gonna, 2 weeks after we need to have a punch list to get maybe the punch list stuff wrapped up, and we can get a sign off, then you coming back in April vacation.
Well, it'll probably be the summer, because I'm guessing you've already scheduled
I don't know
that.
if it's, to demo the old.
Yeah, well, let's see what the punch list is
Yeah.
before we commit the time. It's
Okay.
It's easy, reasonable stuff. I mean,
All right.
And I know some of the stuff there was like a flammable cabinet, and, from
Which
the time we do
honest,
our.
it was directly that classroom next door. So it's a flammable
Right, and I was just
cabinet,
gonna
what's
say,
in it, I
sometimes
don't know.
when
It's
we do
flammable.
our walkthrough, when we leave, rooms change, stuff gets added, stuff gets moved around. So, we typically see a half dozen devices that may have to get added.
And that, to me, those are reasonable
Yeah.
requests, right? This is a specific thing over here we want to address, or there's a specific thing over here, that's a reasonable, to me, that's a reasonable request. To redesign a significant portion of the system is an unreasonable request. But if we can agree that in 2 weeks, we have another meeting here, is that fair? I'm just trying to get something set in stone so that there's a hard deadline that we all have to meet. And obviously, the deadline's harder for everybody other than the board members here because it's y'all that have to
I
do
will
the
make
work.
sure we have a fire drill in that time period. So that way we get some surprise. It will still be a surprise to
Well,
somebody,
I would ask
possibly even me.
if Tim is available to, I don't know if it makes sense for you to be here during a fire drill to hear the devices themselves, or does it not really help?
I'll just make sure I do it on a day when I have enough help to walk the building in a reasonable amount of time so that we're not asking Brian and Kristen to control 500 kids for 20 minutes outside. We'll just make sure we have,
Pick a nice day.
make sure I don't promise that, but I'll bring enough people to make sure that we can.
So if
My biggest concern is obviously the outdoor, whether the outdoor device works, because that's how your, kids that are outside the building, or anybody that's outside the building knows they have to go there. And then we'll,
Do you have to do an off-site fire?
that's a whole different animal.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, but I'm saying you get them off a lot longer.
The,
2-hour break.
yeah, it's a whole different animal. No, I mean, as long as I have enough people to do the walk, I mean, I could always use somebody from the staff here to do the timing for me. And
I would suspect they're always willing to help with that.
I think Kristen does her own timing anyway, so we can make that work.
So 2 weeks, reasonable? That's my word of the day.
I think it's an achievable goal.
Okay. Are you able to place that on the agenda for
For Tim,
2 weeks?
yeah. That's the easiest part of all.
So you guys are just gonna make a quick list. We noticed the following rooms.
I believe there should be an existing punch list because there was a bunch of,
I'm talking about the volume adjustments.
yeah, I will do the best I can to get that answer. Even if I got to walk around and speak to every single staff after the fire drill,
Is this gonna be
Figure it
something
out.
that we should plan on doing every year, asking their
No.
opinion? Okay.
no, I mean, it's a we're commissioning a brand new system. It is an entirely new sound, obviously. And that needs to be taken into account. But, when I have multiple kids telling me that, hey, we couldn't hear the fire alarm, that to me adds a lot of legitimate,
Yes.
makes me believe what they're saying.
My son doesn't hear a word I say until the moment I stand up.
Yes, but this thing is telling them they get to go stand outside for 10 minutes.
If I stand
So-
up, he hears everything.
And again, it's a completely different noise. And that's the whole point, is that it's to allow for instructions to be given, and so that the fire alarm is not adding to the chaos. That's the whole point of the new sound. But again, we want to make sure that everybody knows that there's a fire alarm going off. So
Okay, so 2 weeks, hopefully, because I'm an optimist, we can wrap this up and come up with a final plan. Is that what we're all gathering? Gentlemen, work?
So in 2 weeks, have you guys reviewed since the summer the plan for the water supply issue and access to it? For the dry hydrant that was discussed with the paving project?
We have not gone into that yet.
Currently, parking spaces also block access upon how they're striped,
Okay.
if you review that.
Is there, Chris, are you aware of that?
Where, the request,
Of the parking spots that are blocking access to that area?
yes, there's also a snow bank that I'll have to remove. So just, we can get that taken care of.
Talk to
Well,
us.
I'm like, right
Contractor.
now, there's fencing there, and the water supply's not established, so, right? Has there been any, because this was brought up in the summertime, has there been any discussion?
There's not even a standpipe to tap water from.
There isn't in the rest of the town, so we use, we have means to do that. I'm bringing it up because, it came up when.
You're talking just to get a fire truck down the pond.
correct.
Yeah, and what was, one of the responses I got in email was it was gonna be something that would be worked on this summer was, I thought, the plan. So have you guys talked to any engineers about putting in a dry hydrant or anything?
We have not started that process yet.
Okay. is your plan to continue having parent pickup and drop off come around the back of the building for next year?
That's the staff one.
Where else would you like it?
I have no idea.
Would you like, I mean, I don't.
I have absolutely no idea what else you could do.
I don't know either.
Okay.
It's
But that's why I'm
literally,
asking,
yeah.
'cause, you know, for, let's say, an hour in the morning, hour in the afternoon, that access around the building is limited to the modulars. And I have no idea what else you could
I
possibly do.
know, I don't even know.
Put more kids on the bus.
Well,
Magically
it
find
seems
buses.
reasonable, yeah. Well, we have the buses now, right? It's just a matter of,
So let's, I
So
would
that's
say.
a problem, right? If you have cars running between the modulars and the school, that's a safety issue. The fact that if that's our emergency access around the building, the paved area is 10 feet wide. So it's barely enough to fit a fire truck or gain access to it, right? This is a sprinkler building, so fire department access is different than the non-sprinkler modular buildings.
Well, the good news is we don't pull cars up until 2:30 and we're done by 2:50. So it's really just, I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay.
And same with the morning. They
I
don't,
mean, just working across the street, seeing the backup of traffic.
yep. Oh,
Just
there's,
is-
I'm not saying
I'm
there's
sure
not
it's
backup
fun.
of traffic.
My wife does it 2 days a week, but I'm sure
Uh-huh.
it's just fun.
She doesn't have to deal with a ton of it though, but
It's all right,
it is about 20 minutes from the time the first cars pull up till complete drop off is done
Yeah.
in the morning,
The-
same in the afternoon.
our concern with the way that the problem worked last year is we had, so when during COVID, right, was when we started, well, you guys had no buses, right? So everybody was getting dropped off. And you were doing the 2-lane thing, and when we approved the use of, well, sort of approved, when we didn't object to the use of the fire lane for that process, we were assured that if an emergency did arise, that lane would be cleared for us. So we had 2 incidences last year where we came here for medical emergencies. In one case, my day crew was delayed in accessing the building by traffic. In another case, they were actually interrupted from patient care. Sorry, 2 years ago now, because you guys are using the system. They were actually interrupted from patient care by a staff member. Probably not authorized to do so, but interrupted from patient care by a staff member and asked to move the emergency vehicle out of the emergency lane to facilitate parent pickup. So that was kind of when we went to move away from allowing the 2-lane thing, because it had proven that it was not going to work under no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. Well, that's what happened, is when we actually had to get in the fire lane, we couldn't. So that was the limit of our request, is that
So I think last year.
The access be
rerouted
maintained.
around The building was to keep the cul-de-sac open.
I thought I would be George Jetson by now and be able to fly in and fly out,
Just
and
put cars on
we're
the roof.
not. Mm-hmm.
No, not on the roof,
No roof.
nothing on the roof.
Is that what the solar panels go?
Well, maybe.
Oh, that you could put a parking garage on that roof, you wouldn't have a problem.
Right.
That is a heavy duty roof.
So I'm gonna be, because I'm an optimist, hope that we can resolve everything in 2 weeks and sleep well tonight and morning. Does that work?
I think it's reasonable.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
I guess I'm done.
Thank you.
I'm going home.
We're only on item number
Not
4
yet.
of 17.
You can stay longer.
Chris, as lovely a chair as this is, I'm getting it back.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Tomorrow for the skate race. You can have the surgery on bag.
Okay.
Move the minutes of January 3rd. as written. It's the top of the pile and what's in front of it.
Sorry.
January 3rd.
Okay, we have,
Second.
we already have a second from Nate.
Sorry, he beat me, sorry, so.
Second, Nate.
That's for January 3rd.
January 3rd, yeah. Any discussion about those minutes? Okay, all in favor? Alright.
Move the minutes of January 17th as written.
Second.
And any discussion?
Yeah, number D. Yeah, so that would be butter. Oh, yeah, I do that all the time, sorry. I say things backwards too. The assignment of high school student policy, it says, if you go further down, it says the student's commitment to a school is for 1 year, not all 3, it should be all 4. For all 4, so it's 4 years in high school.
But they don't have to commit for all 4 years.
No, but I'm just saying, they go to high school for 4 years, so it should be 4.
That's debatable.
Well, yeah, that's true too. But if we're going with how many years are in high school.
No, but, oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay. Do we need a motion to amend that? Or approve it as okay. All in favor of approving as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Move the minutes of December 6th, and I apologize for being out of order, but it's Principal Willie's fault. You printed them in that order.
I did. I gave them to you in the wrong order. It's true. It's true, I did.
Do we have a
Thank
second?
goodness they were there.
These were the minutes that, the printed version was, not finished.
I'm sorry, can I get the second? I didn't.
Yeah, sorry. So they were unfinished, so these are the finished version. Does anyone have any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving December 6th?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public comments.
Hi, Bobby Ann Doffy, 5 Brown Road. And just to reiterate what just happened, with all due respect, Zach, you knew about all of the punch list items since 2020. You were here, so were you, Nate. So I really recommend that you guys, because 2 weeks, let's be realistic, that your whole reasonable request thing, you should reasonably educate the rest of the board, because the likelihood of you finishing a punch list in 2 weeks is obviously not going to happen if you couldn't finish it since 2020. So you knew what the fire department was requesting from 2020, and then they seemed really knowledgeable, that the engineers seemed really knowledgeable, but it seems like nobody was educating and giving the information to the fire department for them to sign off. And like Nate said, do you even have a sign off? Did they even say, this looks good? He didn't seem like he received the second copy. So I really recommend you educating everybody,
Can you
because
direct your comments to the chair? Sorry.
sure.
That's just the policy.
Yeah, definitely. I recommend you educating yourself and getting every information you can out of the people who've been here, because nothing seems to have been done in a long time, except when something hits the fan and needs to be done. So hopefully that will happen, because you guys seem really dedicated to being in your roles. But thank you so much, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Sure. Kimberly Black, Meeting House Hill. I just had 2 quick comments. I definitely am in support of making sure that we have the safest school for our staff, students, and the community, and the understanding that that is another burden on what our taxes would potentially look like. I would be in favor of trying to rephase and extend this process to make sure that we have the best detection for a smoke detector in these rooms, because things like the Christmas lights and such that they had mentioned, and even other such things like outlets burning, like those catching on fire, like they're going to produce smoke before they're going to produce heat. And I really think that's a really important component of keeping our schools safe for everybody and intact, because like ultimately it's going to be cheaper to install those detectors than it will be to replace the school, to push school out so that we can make improvements once a wall catches on fire. Like the community can't do that. So I think it's really important to work towards making sure we get those components addressed. And just a small backup to classroom sizes. Again, I have a hard time with like the kindergarten classrooms not being required, and would kind of like to have a consideration for, depending on class sizes, I realize you don't understand those, but to condense those back into the 2 classrooms, but potentially keep staff, like keep the 4 teachers, because it's not essentially class size as much as it is like student to teacher ratio. So if you have 20 students and 2 teachers, and in there you could separate the kids out, you can work in groups. I think that would be an option to consider, to at least if there's 4 kindergarten classrooms. If we could get 2 of those classrooms back, we could reduce down the modular, for example, and get those classrooms back. So if that's something that would be attainable, I'd kind of like to thought about. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Harold Rhodes, Trick Street. Madam Chairman, it does seem like you have a process control and communication issue we were discussing earlier this evening, so good luck with that. Speaking of communication, a week till the deadline for the Gazette. Do you have any good news, dicey news, information, deadlines that you'd like to get into every mailbox in town? Please let me know. Love to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda McNair, Perry, Range Road. Madam Chairman.
You don't have to address it.
I would like to commend Zach for trying to be as apolitical or whatever, to trying to tiptoe around and get to the point. I appreciated that. I would have not been as judicious, I guess I have to say, but I'm an engineer and it's black and white. What I am most concerned about is that the assistant fire chief sat here with the book in front of him and said that your building didn't meet that code. The problem is that code addresses existing buildings. What he should have said clearly is this building does not meet new construction standards. The code has existing building standards as well. If we're not meeting existing building standards and he sat there and that's what he actually meant to say, then there's a problem with our fire department not doing their job, because we are supposed to be meeting the existing building standard. But I feel like it was put out there, people will watch this and think, when he says your building doesn't meet code, it doesn't meet new construction code, but no, neither does any house, other than if you had your house built within the last year and a half, does it meet code. So codes change, but they have provisions for existing, and I just want to make that as clear as I can within the people watching the meeting. But that book has entire chapters on existing buildings. And I believe that every effort was made by those people to meet that standard. I don't think there's one engineer out there that would go out of their way to not meet that standard. I just want you to feel a little bit easier about that.
Thank you.
Ms. Dosa, did you catch that?
Yeah, I got it when he was saying it. I'm saying she should still educate herself, because the likelihood of it being in 2 weeks is,
Any other public comments? Okay,
Can I just say something for the record?
sure.
Mostly, we have been working on resolving this for months. And for this meeting to occur tonight took a number of outside factors to make it happen. But this is not something we have not been making attempts to resolve for months. And I think any sentiment outside of that is a misrepresentation of the truth. This is not something that we have ignored. This is something we have been attempting to resolve for months. Thank you.
Thank you.
Since September.
Since September.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda review. Do we need non-public?
I don't think so, but I do need to add something.
Okay.
We have to revote on the tax impact on warrant articles. We change the tax impact, so.
So we will add that as letter D under immediate business?
Yep.
Is there information? Information?
Sure. Why not?
Um, Is it, just one other potential question, because Chris is here,
Yes.
and I believe he's here to discuss item 11A.
Mhm.
Would it be possible to allow Chris to speak to that and have that conversation so that maybe he can go home?
We absolutely can.
Unless you want to stay all night, but that's up to the judge.
No, that's fine. So we'll hear 11A now.
I did not make copies of these.
No, that's fine. They were many pages.
I know that somebody got a
Somebody got a
binder.
special binder.
Oh,
Hopefully, because I gave it to his son to
Let me tell you
deliver.
something, there is a hell of a lot of reading.
I
Yeah.
know.
Made by the superintendent. at
Yes,
5 o'clock on
color
Friday night.
copied and
And I
everything.
even knew some of the
Delivered by my
words.
son to my house.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Chris.
Hi, good evening. We got 3 bids, a lot of questions to them. Some aren't as clear, crystal clear as others. A lot or all of the proposals have an award date by the end of this month.
Okay.
I would like to request to do the following things. Reach out to my vendor for the roof to get his opinion on the racking system and mounting system for the roof. To reach out to Clean Energy New Hampshire to get their, which is a nonprofit organization, to get their input on the equipment that each vendor is proposing. And then I've spoken with Zach to get together with the 3 vendors for a quick meeting, just to go over their proposals. If we have any questions, they can get answered, because this is a big project to miss something on that, could tip the scale one way or another. So I'd like,
I was just wondering, would it be okay if I can move into, I'm really
Sure.
concerned about everything being in your bailiwick and you saying, I'm going real soon.
I am.
If that could be included in the question.
sure. I'm hoping to schedule these quickly to get the information wrapped up by mid next week to make my final proposal the following Thursday. So I'll start emailing everybody times and dates, and I'll get that arranged for early next week.
And I think ultimately what would be occurring would be that Chris would be making a recommendation, and then you would be presumably notifying the prospective winner pending the outcome of voting and the PPA question and all that stuff. But at least you can then let 2 other contractors know that they're out.
And I think Chris already knows this, but we just need to be careful not to disclose when we're
All-
asking for advice from people, they can't know the companies who
Right.
submitted it.
All of the information were direct cut sheets from the manufacturer, so they have no idea
Who submitted it.
what vendor's submitting what proposal.
The big picture is it's a 300 plus or minus kilowatt system, roof mounted along the lines of what we discussed, and there's some variations in the proposals that I think just need to be rooted out a little bit to see what seems the most prudent.
It's not heavy, no one's gonna be able to change their number or anything like that. We gotta hold everybody to what they're doing, but I just wanna make sure that i's are dotted and t's are crossed before I make my proposal.
I think that sounds great. I know we also have the energy committee in town, and I wonder if it would be worth consulting with the energy committee on this. I don't know if there's a meeting.
I don't think we can, those are really confidential.
Okay.
And I don't think we can disclose the companies and what their bids were.
All right, anything else?
Very good, thank you.
So we will go back to item number 8, review of correspondence. I didn't have any in here, and I also didn't have any in the drive. But I admittedly didn't go back and check, but
I think most of there were questions and comments, but I think
Right.
they're mostly related to this very specific,
Specific.
not like the whole board.
I've gotten a lot of emails.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there
There
were
were
any
any
board comments. Yeah. Okay, if there
I
were,
didn't go back and look either though.
yeah, if there were, I will look again. Consent agenda. Do you have any items? Excellent. Okay, board reports. Do you want to do PTO?
Yeah, there isn't much. There we go. Okay, just we're planning to do a small and tall ball, April 12th. I think it was 4th grade and below with some sort of an adult that they would like to bring.
I think it was pre-K to 2.
Or maybe it was K to 2.
Pre-K.
K to 2.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then cookies and craft night, March 8th, which was a hit last year, so. That's all I got.
Exec board, we did have a meeting.
I think you.
I don't think so, it was the 10th. Can't read my
There's
hands.
one next week.
There's one next week, and everyone should have gotten an email. Because the auditors are coming and giving a sort of update and breakdown if people are interested.
It's not an update though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Fine, it's
The board, stink bug in my hair.
Oh, they're everywhere, sorry.
So not.
Yeah, they're in my house too, it's fine.
It's your fault.
The exec board had asked for, the auditing from someone, a representative to come and just share with them why do we do audits, what are they for, how are they done, what's the typical timeline?
What is, like, sort of breaking down what an audit is, what
Help a
things like.
layperson understand.
Yeah, because when you look at something like this, and you're like, what is this? What do I do with this? So, if you're interested in learning more. Valentine's Day, no more romantic way to spend the night than learning about audits.
Perfect time.
I'll be there anyway, because I assume it's a regular exec board meeting. Okay, I think that's it for exec board.
Ken's off the hook. He's got
Yeah, no, I know.
flowers, candy,
Yeah,
chocolate.
he's like, what, kind of go to a meeting, it's fine. All right, principal report.
Yeah. So this is covers January 3rd through February 7th. I'd like to start off with the basketball season. I'll turn it over to our esteemed athletic director.
Yes, I don't know if there's a coincidence of a new athletic director and all our teams being in the finals, but
Definitely.
there possibly could be. So it is awesome to report that all 4 teams, both A and B girls and A and B boys, are in the finals tomorrow. So B finals are here at DCS and A are at Barrington. And they typically hold those, no coincidence either, but they typically hold the playoffs at our 2 schools because of the regulation courts. Quite a few other schools in our league do not have regulation size courts. So it makes it difficult to have kids adjust and things of that nature. So those will be held at 3:45 and 5-ish respectively. So, which is great.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks to our PTO who provided the materials for Appreciated Dragon Day. We celebrated that last year for the first time. It is a National Appreciated Dragon Day. I know it's hard to believe that we would actually have that with our mascot. So it was on Tuesday. Typically, I think the actual day is like the 15th, but with Martin Luther King and so Tuesday the 16th, we had Appreciated Dragon Day. And when you walk around the school, you'll see Appreciated Dragon colorings and drawings all over the place with who our students and staff appreciate. On Wednesday the 17th, we had SAU leadership. That's was over at the conference room at the SAU building. In addition, Concord High School visited our 8th graders to talk about registration. We had a visit from Co-Brown back in December, I think, and Concord High School came on Wednesday the 17th, and we had a parent meeting that evening. We were supposed to have it the night before, but we had a snow day, so it got rescheduled to that evening. On Monday, the 22nd, we had our professional day, and it has been a tradition for the last few years to have something called Tech Trek. So Brooke and Petroselli had done a survey couple years ago, asking teachers like what kinds of things do you need, what are you interested, what can I do to help you, and predominantly the teachers replied, we'd love to have time to just dig into the technology that we have available to us at DCS. And so that was when Tech Trek was born, and Brooke Ann Petroselli and Beth Mostu did an awesome presentation on AI and some of the millions and millions of resources that are out there. There weren't millions, but and Brooke Ann talked about the direction that AI is going, where we are in the district. The district has started an AI committee district-wide to start taking a look at policies. And so this is moving forward and carefully, because there's a lot of security around AI that we have to be aware of, and there's a lot of educating of students that we would need to do for understanding of what AI is. Beth, our librarian, did a presentation on media literacy, and that's the work that she's doing with 6th and 7th grade, including 5th grade, on citing sources and all the work that is going on around that. So that was a wonderful morning, and then in the afternoon, teams had time to dig into the resources that Brooke and Beth had provided. It was a wonderful day. The morning started out with our PTO and families. PTO came to set up a delicious spread of bagels and muffins and cream cheeses and all the things that teachers love. So appreciate you doing that for us. And on Friday, the 26th, we had our monthly all-school meeting. Our 4th graders were the hosts. We finished our winter iReady benchmarking for our 1st through 8th grade. Our kindergartners did not do iReady yet. Most schools in the district are not doing kindergarten until the spring. So we'll do a benchmark in the spring with our kindergartners. And we spent a good amount of time in our PLCs this week going over that data, reviewing it, celebrating some of the growth that we've seen, talking about what we need to do in terms of addressing some of the gaps that we are seeing happening, just using the data to drive our instruction as well as our win blocks for students for what I need. Administration has enjoyed our time with classes of the week this month. Mrs. Plater in kindergarten was class of the week. Mrs. Maynard was class of the week, and Mrs. O'Mara is class of the week this week. She's in 2nd grade. Mrs. Maynard's kindergarten. And as you know, I've been visiting advisories in their community circle, and I was able to visit Mrs. Blunt and Mrs. Chase, the art teacher. They have an advisory together in 7th grade, and I visited Mrs. Peasley's advisory the other day in 6th grade, and I'll be visiting Miss Morris tomorrow, and she has a 6th grade advisory. I did confirm that with Bob Malloy for Saturday. He's coming for the deliberative session, knows he's sitting up in the cafeteria, and I will be here at 7 o'clock for his arrival and setup. Just an FYI, some upcoming things. Tomorrow we're doing our career fair. This has also been a tradition here at DCS for many years, where our 8th grade magnets visit with members of the community who come in and talk about their careers. On Friday, the Deerfield Fire and Police will be visiting 1st grade for their community unit. We will also be having the 100th day of school, which I think is Monday the 12th, because Valentine's Day is February 14th, in case you weren't sure when that fell this year. And just another thing upcoming for the board's information, New Hampshire State Assessment Test, the New Hampshire SAS, is doing a writing test. They always do a writing test, but this year they're having us give it to the students in March. There's been a lot of feedback and a lot of groups that have gotten together over the course of the year to talk about the writing test and how to improve it. So we are moving it up to between March 5th and 7th. The window is bigger than that, but here at DCS we'll be doing it March 5th and March 7th. The students will be given a writing prompt, either in information, opinion, or narrative. The narrative samples will be hand scored and calibrated so that we have a different calibration moving forward. The state has provided rubrics for us to use, and the grade levels, this is for grades 3 through 8, have been working with their students on, focusing on those 3 types of writing, because it's happening earlier than it typically does. Typically, we would start the SAS test the end of April and into May. So that will be happening, and it's just the writing test, and it's just for this year. So we're told. And then lastly, Mr. Grieve has sent out an email on behalf of Mr. McCabe. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So Mr. McCabe, as you guys are aware, is our world culturist teacher. Kind of a new adventure scenario for DCS outside of the world language program that we used to have. And seventh grade this year has been studying more popular religions, not every religion obviously, but he was able to get a guest speaker who was a rabbi out of Manchester. So we will be having that rabbi come next week, speak to all the seventh grade students, share her perspective on her religion. Kids can ask questions and things of that nature. So he's getting jumped in the deep end real quick, and it's impressive what he's doing. So
An email has gone out to the seventh grade families, letting them know about this, and letting them know that they can reach out to Mr. McCabe if they have any questions or concerns.
Great.
And that's, yeah.
Is he working, that's a great idea, is he working on addressing other religions as well?
He is trying, yes. Yeah. So.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you so much. Curriculum Review Board.
I already reported on the last town meeting, but I just want to remind you that the art staff is going to present their new curriculum on March 23rd. That's in the minutes, but I just want to bring it up again. I have done my next meeting.
Sounds good. MVC updates. I don't think there have been any since our last board report out that are different. So the budget is moving forward on Saturday, so we will see everyone then. Okay, now immediate business, B, lunch prices.
So Gail had reached out a bit ago and asked if we would start having a conversation about increasing lunch prices, and I neglected to write down what she was.
We currently
want to have a conversation about it.
Well, so currently we charge $2.60, and we've charged that for for years,
Yeah.
outside of the time that students were getting free lunch and during COVID. So we've been charging $2.60 for years. You had mentioned that Amber said we can only increase prices a certain percentage. And looking around the district, the average around the district is $2.85. So I think it was 25 cents more than what we had, and I think a couple maybe.
I think that the regulation is 10%, but I asked Amber to check on that for me. I don't think you can at one time exceed 10% of what you're charging, which
Is about
26 cents.
Right.
So
if that's the case, then we will be looking to increase the price to $2.85.
Would that be something you're looking to do for next school year?
Yes, next school year. It's getting harder and harder to make a lunch for $2.60.
Yeah, I was saying, is that just because of our inability to sort of make the food that we want to make?
we're gonna run out of surplus quickly. We had the surplus because we had free lunches for a while, so we were able to build up, but.
Right, so the question is does raising it to 285 impact anybody's ability necessarily to buy?
To pay.
So lunches? And that ties into some other policies. I think one of them
We just reviewed the school lunch, the negative account balance policy. Yeah.
So is this something you're looking to address tonight?
I mean, the decision doesn't have to be made tonight, but we wanted to put it out there for you to at least think about it, that was a proposal. You wanna think about it and come back to the next meeting, that's fine. We just wanna give families notice, we don't wanna.
Right, it would be.
Have any surprises for next year, yeah.
Rough number of free reduced lunch.
Oh.
I don't know what your percentage is now.
So I'll find out for you.
Well,
Mhm.
the students receiving that, I mean, the free and reduced lunch rate is higher than what we charge as regular. We get reimbursed more for a free and reduced lunch than we charge for a lunch. Right? We get $3.50, I think, or something.
I'd have to look, I'd have to check the person that does food service.
Well, I'll make a motion to see if it flies, if we increase the lunch price for next school year to $2.85. Thank you.
Discussion.
I'll have to wait and think about it a little bit before I vote.
Yeah,
There was, the school board association, I signed up for a thing about lunch and access, and, I tried to listen to it and I couldn't, it was like all messed up, but they sent me the video and I haven't had a chance to watch it, and I'd like to watch that before. May not make any difference in what I decide, but I guess I'd like to be a little more
I
educated.
think there's historically always a deficit for food services,
Right, yeah.
and is 25 cents a meal going to have a huge impact?
Yeah.
No,
No,
if it helps to close
I
the
agree, and I
deficit.
think I'll probably vote that way, I guess I'd just like a little.
yeah, I guess I would like a little more time, and I would like the opportunity to get feedback if people have very strong feelings about it. It's just not a topic that I've thought that much about, nor have I talked to people about it. So, I mean, I personally think we should sort of table the issue until maybe March, our next business meeting, to give people time to think about it and weigh in, if it is going to really substantially affect people, you probably want to think about that.
Sorry, just to give you, that would be $44.50 more a year if a student was to eat lunch every day.
Okay.
But then a lot of parents have more than they get to.
Right, yes, that would be per student. Yeah, and that's with 178 school days.
Is there a way that we can also find out, like, an average, that we run, like,
With deficit,
yeah, how much,
it fluctuates from year to year, and
So that's in the budget, isn't it?
It is, but because the state was doing full reimbursement for a number of years, we don't have accurate data for the last couple of years because the state was doing full reimbursement. So we're actually running a financially sound food service budget.
I think it's
for the first
yeah.
time ever.
I think it's more her noticing that now we're kind of back in full operation and trying to order food and order everything. She came forward to say, this is.
So I mean, if you think about if every single child, and so we have 500 kids, if every single child bought lunch every single day, we're still only talking $21,000, $22,000 of gains, and the percentage of kids that are eating lunch is minimal. It doesn't necessarily close the gap in food services, but it's one of those things. I made the motion because it's sometimes an unpopular motion and needs to be made, but still needs to be done. So
Yeah, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it, and and I,
you get a friend.
I know. And I obviously don't want to put more work, but if there was like an example of like, if we could raise it, like maybe we could offer this or something that may help or explain why we are,
Like Chinese food.
I don't know.
I mean,
We're trying to pay for what we're already
yeah,
offering.
the cost of food goes up,
Yeah,
perpetually.
but that's fine.
And staffing costs go up, so I mean, it's
Well,
just.
I'm thinking too, one of our goals this year is looking at food and trying to make sure it's healthy food and looking at all that. So I just feel like I'd like to do that and then, so that they're in parallel and not do one and then do the other one later. So I just.
This is not specifically related to student lunch prices, but I was watching an education committee hearing, and there is pending legislation about increasing access to local foods, and I think there was some sort of grant program that they were trying to get passed. So anyway, that might be interesting to look at, see where that is.
Yeah, just send it to me because I was looking through them all today and I could see that.
I emailed Danielle, so I wouldn't forget.
Danielle can send it to me.
So anyway, we have a pending motion on the table to increase lunch price to $2.85. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed?
And I'm not opposed to that, I'm just
Right.
opposed to being decided
Today.
Did you say aye?
I meant
No. I know. That's why I was the one to catch that. Yeah.
I didn't say it at the same time as Zach.
Yes.
All opposed, aye. I am opposed. Yes. That's what I
No,
said.
no,
I'm sorry.
I think that was the only
4-1.
one that voted against.
I wrote alone.
For now.
For now,
yeah.
right.
We'll-
And I'll try to get some of that information together for you next time.
Okay. C, amendment on school building repair fund.
Before we move on to this, can I skip back 25 steps and ask to add another agenda item that I forgot about? Sure. I promised I would not forget this, and I did. A
Ouch.
conversation about electric buses.
Okay.
Leave you on the edge of your seats while we do this.
I can't wait.
Legislation on it too.
She said this meeting.
Ooh. Okay.
So we heard from one of our trustees of the trust funds, and when we took the vote for to withdraw funds from the building repair fund, we did not cite the exact name of the fund in the motion. So they asked that we vote so that the record and the minutes reflect the exact name of the trust fund. So now I don't have the exact in front of you. So I don't know, Trish, you probably don't even have it in front of you, but the withdrawal was for $851,186.56.
From
And in the paper, we had school facilities repair and improvement, and this was supposed to be addressed a while ago. The improvement, when we changed the name, it didn't pass. So we shouldn't have said improvement. We should have just said school building repair fund. And that request was to have the correct name of the minutes. So
So you need a motion to
with the
withdraw
correct name of the trust
800
fund.
and, what was the number, 851,000?
186.56
So a motion to remove 851,186
and 56 cents.
and 56 cents from the, which fund?
School building
School
repair.
building
fund.
repair.
The school building repair fund. That's my motion.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we will resubmit the request with the correct name.
Tax impact note.
I handed out a revised warrant. And first, we'd like to say that I'm aware that there were some energetic conversations about the warrant article in Deerfield, and wanted to make it crystal clear that the board received a warrant that did not have final edits. Not the board's fault. It was put in front of you to sign, and you graciously signed it. It had the feedback from the attorney on it, but it did not have the final edits on it. So that version should not have been posted. It was posted. I am hopeful that the edits were corrected and caught, and we did check with legal to make sure that the board had the authority to fix and make edits to a warrant article, and you do. So hopefully this is a cleaned up copy in front of you. But the one thing that Eric Gross noticed that the tax impact was wrong on a couple of them, and it hadn't been updated from current votes also. So the advice from legal was that's something the board decides to put on the warrant. So the board should vote to adjust and add the tax impact to the warrant articles. And I did make a note of what the changes were so that you knew. Number one, originally the increase was $19.48 for an overall increase of $2.20. That went up 2 cents on each. So I think when the bus changed the tax.
2 cents
impact,
or
10
10
cents.
20 cents.
Sorry. It's $19.58 and then $2.30 now. So, and then number two, the original version had 18 cents and that is now 12 cents. And on number 7, the original didn't have the tax impact, so that it's on there because that's something the board had decided they wanted to include this tax impact, and that's 18 cents.
So we need to move these individually? Or are we, can they
You can just motion to accept the revised
So I
one.
make a motion to revise the accept one, revise the amended one. Accept the revised.
Yep, you got it.
Accept the revised.
We're in the
Accept
same spot.
revised One.
Second. Any discussion?
Yeah. When that change was voted on to re-accept the new budget from the NBC with the bus. Like, I was not at that meeting, so I think there should not be
We have
4-1.
too many approvals.
And actually, because I don't know if the votes would be the same, because are you amending the votes at this point? as
We
well?
didn't touch anything other than the tax
Okay, so we're not changing the
impacts.
votes as far as the counts. We're just accepting the amended one.
Correct.
Okay.
And there was like a few grammatical things
Right,
that were.
I just want to make sure that, like, it's not going to be a 5-0 on the budget. per se.
No.
Okay.
But you're right, I think it was 3-1-0. Not 4-1-0, because you were not here. We'll have to just confirm.
On the NBC number?
No, the school board recommendation.
When it was, I meant when it was changed from the NBC after that. You take.
Nate was not here.
Right, I'll make sure those are correct. I will look back to that
So the
meeting.
only other option is, do you want to just, where the 5 members are here, is it better to?
No, you don't want to do that.
Kind of do.
I'm sure you do.
Set the can of worms.
I always kick the can first.
I know you do.
Is the motion pending?
Yeah, did you get a
Yes.
second? You
Okay.
seconded it.
Yeah, I seconded it. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting the amended warrants?
Aye.
Aye. Which does not include the amendments that will be
Yes.
making at the
So-
limit.
So it's just edited and the tax impacts are updated. That's it.
I'm not changing the vote or anything, but does that mean when Nate does the tariff contract that he has to amend it? Because will they
No.
say,
No, if the votes are incorrect, if they're not on here, that's an edit and we will fix that.
no,
If the
I
votes are-
meant the amount, because you said it went from 18 cents to 12 per thousand.
The tax
The
impact,
estimated tax impact.
just the tax impact.
Right.
But no, that doesn't, you vote on that and that's it.
Okay.
That's informational.
So what you have to amend on the one is something else?
Yes.
Yes.
We're gonna talk about that.
Okay, right.
Are we talking about that?
Did you want to tell the board what your plans were?
Sure,
I
probably.
kind of want the surprise.
I mean, if you're gonna make an amendment, you probably want to tell your board meetings.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
That looks
Made
like
a
long-
handout.
That looks like a long amendment.
No, it's not.
It's the same, it's one thing.
So this is a document, that we prepared to clear up the language in Article 6. Because there was a lot of feedback, a lot of which I agree with, that amendment, or the Article 6 was very unclear about what we were trying to do. I think the board, in discussing it, has been quite clear. But the word itself was slightly confusing. So I proposed the amendments as seen here in the middle. And we run those by council and they signed off and said, looks good.
Did they sign off on the first version too?
Yeah.
Same council?
They wrote,
They
they
wrote.
wrote it, but when Kendra had me ask if her clarifying and changing that language was okay.
Yes, you just put everything.
I really
up
just
front.
moved
Yeah.
one
Put it up
clause up
front. Yeah, it does
higher
make more sense that way.
so that it makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's clear right at the start what it is that we want to do.
Right.
Instead of trying to find it down there in the middle of it.
Right, it was confusing people.
So we have the original, just so people can compare, we have the original language. In the middle is our redlined amendment that we're going to be making, and then the final is the full amended article with no redlining. Just so people can understand when a lot of words are being said at
We'll have a
deliberative.
printed copy.
It's
in.
important.
We will have a printed copy at deliberative, yes.
And it's important to have that stuff right up front because sometimes people don't even read through the whole thing. So it's really good to have it right up front so people get the gist of what it is you're talking about.
I thought it made much more sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
You should be a lawyer.
I should be able to. Who knew? Okay. So that's that.
Good catch.
Electric buses.
There's been a lot of conversation at the SAU about our buses and, maybe we need to look at our own buses. Somebody had thrown something out about electric buses and it didn't really get any traction. And then Amy Manzelli, several months ago on the Pembroke School Board, came back to the board and said, hey, I've heard that there's a really big pot of grant money through EPA for schools that want to adopt electric buses. The board authorized her to look into that. So she's been doing that. She's been working with a company in Connecticut who sort of facilitates and helps you with the process. I already know about this, okay.
I looked into it, but the SAU told me to go pound sand.
Well, I'm only bringing you the Pembroke Board's opinion here at this point. So she just found out that the intent to apply expires next week. And I told her there was no way we were gonna pull off a full SAU board meeting when it's difficult to get one of those together, even to approve a budget. It's 12 people, trying to get 12 people together in the next few days. But luckily, I had this meeting tonight, and Jack is meeting with Allenstown and Epsom on Monday and Tuesday. So we actually could submit an intent. What she would need to be authorized by each board that wanted to submit something. It's not the grant, it's not a commitment, it's just a, hey, it's kind of like the building aid. Hey, we might be looking into this. Could you tell us how much we would qualify for? And to meet the deadline. If we don't do it now, the third pot of money is going to have less, and they don't know how much less. But she said this pot of money right now is pretty significant and could, just from there, we can't, hold them to it, but very preliminary numbers, we could potentially get $200,000 towards each bus, and maybe the cost would be $35,000. The piece that is going to take some time is we need to develop a committee, obviously, look into the charging, answer all these questions. It would mean hiring our own drivers. So this is a lot of conversation. This is very preliminary. But if we don't at least put our name in that, hey, we want to be in this pot, then we can't. So we have to wait.
So in an effort, because I love busing.
I mean, you would.
I love busing. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's worth exploring, and I think if it's just a matter of a motion to authorize.
Yeah, Amy has to, it says I've been authorized by to submit this, and she would need, any board that wants to participate in this round of funding would need to vote to authorize her to pursue that.
So moved.
Absolutely, this could save us a ton of money.
Imagine if you had a 300 kilowatt solar array.
That's right. Have to add a charging station.
Couple of plugs, you're off and running.
Yeah, I'm all for it too.
Are you seconding?
I'm second.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
And let's clarify for sure.
Clarify the motion.
To authorize Amy Manzelli of the Pembroke School
100%.
Board to submit a letter of intent for the Deerfield School Board.
First, you didn't hear me say all that?
For how many buses? We have to know how many buses.
Oh, what?
How many buses you want her to say, hey, we would want this many buses if we got this grant.
Potentially 10.
10.
Potentially 10.
You can always say, if this went all the way, you can say no thank you, but you
Right.
want to get in your
This
request.
is just a handshake and a how do you do and a first aid.
Okay.
That's what it is.
I mean, is there any benefit to putting less buses?
Well, I think if you're gonna, I don't think so. It seems like if you put in your request, like if the SAU put in for 50 buses, they may say you can get 200,000 per bus, is what my understanding was. Or, when it comes down to it, we could say, oh, we only need 40, 45.
Okay, so you're including in your motion 10 buses?
That's what I said.
Yes, very clearly. And you're seconding all of
I'm,
that.
I'm seconding
Okay.
all of that.
All, we are on the same page, right here. You're not gonna, I am not riding alone right now. I just got one co-conspirator on this ride.
Okay, all in favor of designating Amy to do this? Not repeating the whole thing.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay?
Okay,
I will let her know.
Policies. There's an entire second agenda page.
Yep, so we have, been diligently working. Ashley created a wonderful master spreadsheet for me of all the policies for all the districts and color coded them. And these are the ones that are required by law, that have been updated, that you need to update. And then I sorted them by date, and we're trying to plug away at addressing the really old ones that sit there and don't get dealt with because they're not required, so nobody looks at them ever. And I think we're through working on the 1990s at this point. So we've tried to sort of separate out into sections so that you understood sort of what we were doing. So the top section says first reading required, updates needed. So these are policies required by law that the School Board Association has updated since you've adopted them. So you have them, but you've not updated them at the rate that the School Board Association has. So those will need to be looked at. There's also a first reading for policies that we wanted on the agenda to address. So the high school reassignment policy that you're working on. The fund balance policy is something the auditors want us to update. And then the part-time substitute staff is something we talked about at the executive board level. So that's why those are there.
Let me ask you a question,
Yeah.
because I was a little confused by like the fund balance one, that you have the Deerfield one and then you have the School Board Association, so we're supposed to compare the two and decide.
So
how they're different?
typically, unless you see something in the old policy that you're really interested in putting in the school board policy, typically boards use the sample policy because they know that after every legislative session, those get updated. And if you want to change it, I just need to reach out to legal and say, hey,
So it's
if you want to
basically-
modify this, does it still meet the requirements of the law? That's all. And then we're just starting to plug away, so there's 6 on the bottom that are from the 1990s, and
these are not required?
If they shouldn't be, I mean, it's a mistake in the categorization, but you should be able to see whether or not there's a school board association corresponding policy, and if there isn't, that means that it doesn't exist any longer. So there's some really old policies that boards have that they don't even exist in the policy manual anymore, and you would just be voting to rescind those. Scared. Oh, no.
Don't be afraid.
Means
My
nothing.
view is
There are
it's
some
liberating.
really,
We're getting rid of them unless we need them.
yeah, well, they don't exist anymore. You know, you may have had a policy for something that used to be a part of a policy manual and it just doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't mean we don't address it. It doesn't mean we don't have procedures in place, but it's no longer a school board policy.
Yeah, and I like, for instance, the last one on here is apparently not an appropriate policy based on what I was, JICD-R, student suspension and expulsion. So like we can't really make a policy about that, but we can make some like guidelines.
Sometimes there are other policies that address this and it's changed over time. So there are, the discipline rules were really overhauled in the last few years. So that's a separate policy.
Yes. So yeah,
Then you don't need that. And
I
you
was
don't-
like, why do we not need a student suspension policy? But it's like, it explains it in the school board document that's in the drive. Like, if you read the first paragraph, it's like, these are sort of guidelines, but not a policy that sort of explain a different policy. So like, if an administrator needs help figuring out how to enforce policy JICD, they can reference this document, but it's not a policy per se. So
what is that? That's.
well, I think it's a good
It was in
guideline.
the 1990s.
Yeah, right, it was in the 90s.
Our job to remove it.
That's right. Yeah, so in order for something to be removed, we have to remove it. So that's sort of why there's so many.
And they don't all need to be done at once, but we are pretty committed to having a page of policies for everybody, because this, we've got to start plugging away,
Yeah.
getting these manuals updated.
And like, so if you're looking at the agenda, for instance, like IMDA, that is an optional policy because it's already a state law. Like there's not, we can't really change that, but we don't need to have a specific policy on it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, some of the older policies were used to be options and they aren't.
Right, like
Longer.
laws have been changed, so it's not optional.
So what would be the best way for us to tackle it? Should we start with the first reading 1990s and get those done, or?
I would think it's probably easiest to rescind some of the 1990s. And then I would focus also on the middle section that we really want to work on.
The middle section.
The first readings that you're.
Those are like
currently-
new
Yeah, the three.
The very first folder, okay, first reading, yeah.
So are these all automatically would go to second reading next time, and then third, and then into reading and reading with all of them?
They can all move to second reading, but you can decide, like in Pembroke, they decided, okay, we're gonna do this section, and then a few at the top at the next meeting. They decided what they were gonna work on, so it's not so overwhelming. At least they stay on here and we'll.
And
as
this
soon
is
as
not,
some
this is
come off,
not the
some will go
complete
on.
list.
No, I don't close.
We haven't gotten to the 2000s yet.
So for next, I mean, you meet every 2 weeks, so that's a lot of pressure. So if you wanted to just deal with the 1990s and then your, the middle three that we're currently working on, I think that would be fine. For
Okay.
next meeting, we can leave the others on first reading.
Does that work for everyone? Move the second two categories to second reading.
Yeah, so, I mean, the first one, I only see 2 policies. Not 3.
For first reading?
In the first.
It should be
And
the
first.
high school assignment one that you're working on,
Okay.
DIA and GCG.
That's interesting, I don't have the high school one in there, not folder. Yeah, so it's not, so it's not in the
Maybe she
folder.
didn't look at.
Okay, so it's just the 2.
Yeah.
Could be
And then-
from
Because you have it, it probably even, it should have actually even been second reading. That's one we have to wait for Dean to review.
Right, so that, and then looking at the middle first reads, the 1990s, okay. I already read the first ones, and
Yeah.
I started to read some.
And then we'll hold the required updates for the following meeting. As we have more time.
Because, yeah, I would recommend looking at the old policy and reading the
Yeah, and
new,
then see if there's
wording.
something missing.
right,
Okay,
like if there's something.
That's what I needed direction, because I started
Yeah.
looking, I'm going,
There's a
It's
whole-
very
kind of the
confusing.
same, like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? But
I would say, read the New Hampshire School Board Association policy and see if there's anything from the old policy we want to add.
Right, okay.
I would say we probably aren't deleting things from the school board association policies, but if there's something specific you want to add, that's something we need to consider.
And then the reading of the 1990s, a lot of it might just be things that we decide we don't want to keep.
Yeah, I mean, they're not required, they're optional.
And typically there is rest in two places, or they've become law that you have to follow. Or they're just obsolete.
Okay. Yeah, okay, sounds like a plan. The information item, Nate. Oh, yes, it's in the packet last page.
I was, we had another version of this kind of information that was part of our negotiations, but just especially in light of, looking, and I missed until I looked at the updated warrant of the vote from the NBC about, this particular issue. I'm presenting it, on Saturday. I'm asking that I can present this, provide it to people coming in. So basically, I would probably write a couple copies off and just have them sitting at the entryway. I don't know if we're gonna be projecting anything or whether the.
We are projecting things,
Are
I
we
think.
projecting?
Why?
You've got something for that?
If I can get my stuff together,
So do you need the TV?
that
'Cause
would be
the,
helpful
okay.
if we can get.
TV.
the touchscreen TV on wheels, we can
We'll
wheel
be
it
in the
in.
cafeteria, not the
fancy.
gym.
Yeah.
The giant one.
No.
On a card.
We keep them on the stage.
We'll put the laptop on.
We put them on the stage when we're talking
All
about.
right.
And even with that, there have been requests for documents in the past. People can't see that from the back of the room, so I would still want to upload these copies. But basically, I just took what I could find from the DOE page, and there's a lot of, you can get lost in salary schedules, and so I tried to summarize and just kind of put some key, and I tried to be somewhat random, but sort of in our geographic neighborhood, which districts I pulled from and who had contracts that went, the time frame and all that stuff. So that's what I came up with, sort of reasonable comparison as we talk about reasonable, as we talk about the proposed contract CDA vote.
Yeah, and I'm happy to put this like in my slides so that we don't have to like switch presentations and stuff.
Yeah. The information I went to the budget committee that looked at the wage scales, this is just 24, 25 compared. There's a few towns here missing, I don't know if that matters, but.
Missing in my list or missing in your list? Oh, that's a different.
Yeah, so this was the, I don't think put this together.
Is that the one with
India Raymond? That's the one actually goes for negotiations that we updated, so it hits around.
Oh, it's the same list that I saw, okay, but
Did you
just
see it?
reorganized into fiscal, okay. Thank you.
It's got a bunch of towns around.
Right, and what I added was there's different levels of scale. per
Yeah,
town,
right. It's
So
hard
I
because some people we try to focus on
Yeah.
the start and end because some have 7 steps, some have 10, some have 5.
Right.
It's hard to.
Right, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if one's better than the other, but if we get lost in all that.
I just wanted you to know
Yeah.
that's what much people got, so yeah, it's good to be. The question comes up.
And then we can discuss which one you want to.
I don't know if that needs approval. or
And don't worry about my notes on that.
I don't think so. It's just informational for the deliberative. If someone else wants to include something for the warrant article they're presenting, let me know. I'll add it to the PowerPoint. Cool. Anything else informational? All right, public comments.
All roads, Church Street. I wasn't actually planning on saying anything, but there's been a lot said, so a couple of comments. One question, is it the intention, Madam Chairman, to put in tax impact numbers for the default budget? In the last draft warrant, I didn't see that, and I was wondering if that was the case, or that would be the case.
It's the same. I also think it's only $3,000 difference, so I think it'll be the same.
Not stated. I heard a comment about the process that was being made, that had been going on since September. I just want to make sure my comments about process control and communication date back to 2020. That was my comment on that. I also, I like the members' comment about other religions. We're apparently picking the 7th most popular religion in the world to start with, but there are 5 others before that, and so it would be great to include a lot of those eventually, as a matter of balance. And finally, Madam Chairman, I applaud your attempt to work together with other bodies in town, and because I know that when the building supervisor was embarking on the solar project, he came to the energy committee. I think another member of the board was also there, and I believe it was productive and introduced him to people and so on and so forth. I was disappointed and take exception with the administrative unit's head. It's a dismissive comment that suggests that energy committee either can hold a non-public session or can't keep a confidence. That was unfortunate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay. We don't need a non-public. Are there any appointments, resignations?
Yep.
Okay,
Move to adjourn.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
See y'all Saturday.
Yep. Big fun.